If what? You mean like caring for others, compassion, forgiveness, all that? Empathy. There are a couple of things. I don't know if you've read the Gospels or not, and I keep going back to the Gospels because Westerners are, for the most part, of the Christian tradition. I'm not going to talk about Islam or Buddhism or Taoism, unless you're one of those New Age yuppies. If you read, for example, the Gospel of Mark, what happens in the Gospel of Mark is that he is in so much pain, him personally, and he feels abandoned, he feels orphaned. There is no one in the physical realm that can help him. There is no Joseph, there is no Mary. He's way up there on the cross, nailed, he's in pain. And when you're in pain, you go through pain all by yourself. If you're going through a divorce, your mom can call you, she can empathize with you, but ultimately she's busy, man. She's got other mouths to feed, she's got to clean the house, she's got her own stuff to deal with. And after 2-3 hours of spending time with you, she has to leave, and there you are, And you're sitting in the four corners of your room, and you have to think about whether or not you want a divorce, what things have gone wrong in your marriage, what's wrong with you, what's wrong with your companion. And you have to do all of this by yourself. And grief, by its very nature, is something that has to be dealt with by your own lonesome. There is no one who can accompany you. You may be severely depressed. You may come to my office. We can chit-chat for a while. And that chit-chatting gives you a good amount of distraction for an hour or two. But the moment I say, Alex, I'm sorry, I have to go to class, you have to pick up your backpack filled with depressing thoughts and depressing history. It may be leading you to paralysis of physical, of emotional, of intellectual, of even spiritual, and then you walk out and you're all alone, okay? So that's what you have in the Gospel of Mark. It's all you. You're only thinking about yourself. In the Gospel of Luke, something really, really interesting happens, where for some strange reason, he's no longer thinking about himself. And like Socrates, he comes forth and says, people don't do wrong things because they want pain in their life. They assume that what they're doing is good, beneficial. And he looks at his people and he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And it really is such a growing stage to be in, that despite people slapping you, abusing you, treating you in all sorts of wrong ways, you empathize with them. In other ways, you put yourself in their shoes. I mean, I don't know if you have a kid brother or a sister who's like 5 or 6 and they keep harassing you. Alex, bro, take me to Target. Let's buy a toy. Let's do this. Let's do that. And there are moments, you are overcome with frustration and stress and anger. But then you catch yourself. You say, oh, Alex, remember when you were 4, how you used to harass dad? That's called empathy. Now, the thing that you need to understand about empathy is that you can't exercise it randomly, because you can only exercise empathy if you care for another. You must also become aware of another's pain. But that awareness by itself is not enough. I mean, look, right now as I'm talking, you're yawning. Okay? Now, in some ways I could say it's a really upsetting scene. I'm trying to explain something that you pretended to be interested in, and I'm hoping that the way I'm explaining it, it's going to interest you, okay? But yawn, for me, illustrates boredom, not being so interested, and that makes me somewhat irrelevant. My value depreciates. It's like the housing market, okay? You ask this question, my value is at $1 million. In the middle, you begin to yawn, it becomes like $500,000. Then all of a sudden, you put your head on your desk and you just go to sleep. That's like zero value, okay? Now, the way I empathize with that is that, well, maybe Alex is 18. He had like a midterm or an exam last night at high school he had to do. Maybe he was watching porn. Maybe he was talking to his friends. Maybe there were some issues at the house. Maybe he just didn't get enough sleep. Maybe he's got some issues. Who the hell knows? That's why he's exhausted. I'm going to cut him some slack. I was 18. I remember when I used to sit in boring classes. I ask a question, not because I feel the question. It's just nobody else is raising their hand. I'm asking, so he's responding, but I'm not really interested. So remember, empathy means being able to overcome your own emotions. Emotions of, for example, you yawning, me feeling irrelevant, me feeling disrespected, all that stuff, pathetic stuff that usually human beings deal with. Put that aside and say, okay, I'm going to empathize with Alex. And for that to happen, I have to dismiss the fact that you yawned. And even if I am boring you and you say this is boring, I also have to forgive the fact that you have just insulted me. And say, okay, that's fine. So it's not like all of a sudden, and remember, all of us have these moments, inspired moments, where you see a homeless man or a homeless person, and you say, I want to buy him something. It's an inspired moment, okay? You were moved into doing something empathetic, act of compassion, all that stuff, overcoming perhaps your own selfishness, your own egoism, to spend $5, but not on yourself and another. Then you have people who are professional empaths. In other words, someone like Mother Teresa. I don't really know what her story is. All I know is that she was a 15-year-old nun, Catholic. I think she was German, if I'm not mistaken. She goes to India, and for some strange reason, she falls in love with the culture and the people. She writes a few letters to the Pope and says, I want to stay here and help people. And, as a nun, you take a vow of celibacy. You also take a vow that you're there for other people. It's kind of like the Buddhist version of the Bodhisattva, that your life is really no longer belongs to you. It belongs to other people. It's kind of like to some extent, being a messianic figure. The moment, Russell, are you a parent?
Yes.
4? My God. God give you patience. When you have 4 kids, what you basically do, I think all parents for the most part, if they're relatively healthy in mind, body, and soul, or emotions, what happens is there comes a point where you realize, well, you can't hang out with your buddies anymore. Your time no longer belongs to you. Your money no longer belongs to you. Your emotions no longer belong to you. You have to put everything aside. You have to put yourself, your pause, everything about you on pause for about 18 years, at least in this culture. When your kids turn to be 18, then you kick them out and you say, okay, now my life belongs to me. But you're so worn out, physically, emotionally, everything, that you say, you know what? I'm just going to go to sleep. I'm going to go into hibernation for about 6 months. So, and that's what parents are professional empaths. They sacrifice everything about themselves so that another, and kids have a good amount of power over you. I mean, that's what a homeless person does. Okay? A homeless person removes all the trash you have in your mind, Alex, about selfishness, egoism, self-centeredness, being an American, individualism, this belongs to me, that belongs to me. And for some strange reason, they have the ability to tap into what we call generically your humanity. And it kind of comes to the surface, and out of it comes innocence. And you also feel guilty for your own privilege. I mean, there are a whole host of things that come about. And all of a sudden you say, I want to buy him like a bag of croissant from Costco. And when you do this over and over and over again, then you are categorized as a professional empath. Your life is basically devoted to serving other people. There is a story that was given to us by ancient Greeks. Hello, Vivian. When Zeus created human beings, or he just gave birth to creation itself, there were 2 brothers, Prometheus and Epimetheus. They went to Zeus and said, instead of you, going out there and giving animals or just created things, various attributes and qualities, let us do it. And Zeus says, fine. So Zeus gives them a bag filled with all these attributes, these gifts. So they go to this thing called the giraffe and say, the giraffe looks a little funny. Let's make him look funnier by giving him this long neck. All right? The zebra. Well, the zebra looks like a donkey. Let's be a bit more creative with the donkey. Let's call it diversity, integration. Let's give him white stripes plus black stripes, so they can live harmoniously together. Lion, big fangs, runs fast. And by the time they come to human beings, they look into the bag and there is nothing. They go to God rather ashamedly and say, "We are sorry, Zeus. We have given everything that you put in this bag, these bags, to other created things. We have nothing to give humanity." Zeus himself comes down and says, "I am going to put two things in human beings: shame and guilt." Shame is a very, very, very interesting emotion. When you read Genesis, when God tells Adam and Eve, "Go everywhere, don't go over there," and they do, they're not embarrassed. They don't feel guilty. They don't become angry. What they experience is shame. They have gotten caught. By who? By someone they respect, by someone who has power over them. See, when your mom gives you $10 and says, "Alex, can you go to Safeway and grab me a bucket of milk?" First, she trusts you. Then she also has faith that when you cross the street, you'll be okay. And then she also knows that when she has given you $10, you're going to do as she says, which is $10 milk for your brother and your sister. She also wants to make some dish that requires milk. Okay? So she has faith in you, she trusts you, all that stuff. On the way, you run into Ivy. And Ivy says, "Yo, bro," the way people talk these days, "where thou be going?" And you say, "I be going to Safeway." He says, "Well, Safeway ain't no that safe. Why don't you come follow me?" "Where you going?" you say to Ivy. And he says, "Well, I'm going to go smoke. I just don't have money. They can get a bucket of weed for $10. You got any money on you?" You say, "Yeah, I got $10. He tempts you. And being the weak, pathetic man that you are, you fall to the temptation and you follow him. 5 hours pass by, all of a sudden your mom calls and you say, "Yeah, Mom. Yeah, the store was closed because of ABCD, and as I was walking back home, there was an earthquake. The earth opened and swallowed the gallon of milk. I'm walking home empty-handed." Now, you go there, you smell bad, you look back, everything about you is distraught. You feel ashamed. And she says to you, "I trusted you, I had faith in you. You're the eldest, and yet you behaved in this way. What is your brother going to think? What's your sister going to think?" Okay? So when Zeus puts an element of shame inside you, now, some things need to happen before you're yawning again. Jesus Christ! The way elements of shame come into being is the following. You're not going to feel ashamed if you don't get caught. Sathya, where are you from? India? India? Can I say a few things? Are you sure? Your skin is thick. You can endure life's assaults without breaking. More power to you. Now, there is a tattoo there. Traditional Indians don't enjoy tattoos. In fact, it's not common in their culture. Sathya had to hide that from the parents because she knew that there would be serious consequences. Then one day, comes out the shower, the mother is there, she's forgotten all about the tattoo, and the mother says, "Oh my God! If your father was here!" "What the hell happened to you?" the mother asks. She got caught. It's against her culture, against the wishes of her parents. So many things gone wrong. She is ashamed. Not embarrassed, ashamed. She has let so many people down. Eventually, of course, everybody, all of us get accepted by our parents. They love us. What can they do? They have to tolerate a lot of crap from children. Right, Russell? We have no choice about those things. Now, the moment you get caught and you are captured by the emotion called shame, something really interesting happens to you. Shame's sibling or cousin, first cousin, all of a sudden comes forth. You feel guilty for having done what you've done, for letting your parents down, letting your family down, letting God down, letting yourself down, asking yourself, how could you be so stupid? Look, you know, and then you realize that perhaps you're incompetent, stupid, your self-image kind of goes away, not to your parents, just to yourself. And you try to create excuses, kind of like the fig leaf, you know, and you want to say, well, it wasn't really my fault, it was her fault. And she says, well, it's not really my fault, it's the snake's fault. And the blame keeps continuing. And it's really, really, really good to come from a culture or a background where the shame component is really strong inside you. Because without shame and without guilt, nobody would hold you accountable to anything, and you would not hold yourself accountable to any standard. Let me tell you how we have devolved as a culture. When I first started teaching, weed wasn't as popular as it is today in public. In other words, if I as an instructor would walk into a classroom and say, how many of you have smoked before coming to class? No hand would ever go up. The culture was different. People were different. Parents were different. Music was different. There was no social media. Trash would not be on TV. There was no room for people like Kanye West. No room. Okay? Time passes, and one of the things you need to understand about time, Alex, look at me. You see wrinkles? You see a full set of hair in my head? Do you see exhaustion on my face? This is what time does. It gives wrinkles to everything. Whatever was once fresh, it becomes exhausted, ultimately becomes ugly, unattractive, impotent. Time did something magical to this culture, like it does to every culture. It changed it into trash. So today when I walk into a classroom, first day of the semester, where people sit as strangers next to each other, and I ask, how many of you watch porn? 20 hands go up. How many of you smoke? 50 hands go up. How many of you come from backgrounds or parents who are divorced? 90 hands go up. And I say, don't these people have any self-respect? These are private things you just need to keep to yourself. Why the hell would you want to raise your hand? Is this something to be proud of? Don't you have an element of shame? And the answer is no. And when you lose the element of shame, you also lose the element of guilt. You don't feel bad about anything. You could be trash. It's okay. It's my right. I'm entitled. Who was that? John Kerry, was it? When Obama was president, he had said what? He said that Americans have the right to be stupid. It's such a stupid thing to say, but that is where the culture is. So, again, talking about empathy. Empathy can only happen if you feel as if you belong to a community, that you're responsible for the joys, you're also responsible for the pains. And when that goes away, then there is no empathy, except inspired moments. Which is, okay, Sathya. Sathya, right? I'm saying your name right? Okay.
There's I feel like this is like kind of widespread concept, but it's talking about recovery. Something that is emphasized really heavily, no matter versus set aside shame, acknowledge it, oh, or now capable. That's something that came to mind. Not that I think shame is useless, it's more so honest. They don't have power over it.
Okay.
The other thing I was
Okay, my apologies. Okay. So there are a couple of things. Your second comment, there is no need to talk about. Okay. And I suppose even your comment about that I'm a male and not a female, that in itself is quite interesting in the sense that oftentimes people are guided by their senses. Russell, you're a married man? Okay. You know when, and forgive me, Russell, I know you and I don't know each other from Adam, but I'm just going to create a scenario. I hope you'll be okay with it. You know, Russell and I will go to a party and you run into a relatively young, attractive female, given that both of us are presumably heterosexual. And we are guided by what we see. We have no access to the interior. We have no access to someone's history, someone's psychology. We are guided by our senses. There are these TV shows, I think it's called Gags for Laugh. So there is this woman who's profoundly attractive. And she keeps eyeing this young man and she keeps winking at him and the man becomes irrelevant. And he probably assumes that the woman is going to come forth or he's going to go over there and ask for her number and they're going to go home and he's going to get lucky. And then the spaghetti comes. And the woman just puts her face in the plate. No utensil, just goes in full force. And then like an animal, she starts eating. And all of a sudden, the man who was once attracted to her becomes very, very, very disgusted. You know. So we make all those mistakes simply because we see and we assume. And one of the things that modernity, at least the past maybe 10, 15, 20 years have taught us, which I haven't really learned that well, is it's kind of like what the Hindus argue about Maya. The world is filled with illusions. Someone has his or her back to you, long hair, you assume it to be a woman, but it's a man. So those mistakes are relatively innocent unless there is some malicious intent behind it, and I assure you there was none. Now let's go back to your first comment about about shame. You know, Satya, something I really, really, really dislike about, especially the past 20, 30 years about the American culture is that it's a bubblegum culture. And a bubblegum culture means the following, that you're chewing a bubblegum and then you make a bubble. And it gets really, really big to the point that it frightens people. What people don't realize is that inside this bubble, there is nothing. It's hollow. It just looks big. It has nothing on the inside. I don't like comments that resemble bumper stickers. Express an act of compassion. World peace. Black lives matter. None of those stuff mean anything to me. Because for anyone who's been through recovery, you know how difficult it is to change. World peace, you're talking about its opposite, which is violence, difficult to change. Addiction, you means freedom. That's its opposite. Very, very difficult to change. Compassion, its opposite is selfishness. Selflessness. Okay, very, very difficult to change. All right? So, if you want to talk about the process of at what stage does one overcome shame, there are a couple of things you need to do. First, you have to ask, where does shame come from? How does one inherit shame? Who gives us this thing called shame? Okay? What have you done where you get caught and you feel bad? Why do people lie? I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship. Certainly, Russell and I have. When you leave the house, if your wife is awake, okay, you kiss your wife goodbye and you say, as a bumper sticker, love you. Now, she told you to sleep on the sofa the night before. What the hell do? You lie. Why? Because, first of all, truth is very, very painful. Honesty is painful. Now, you may say to me, Amir, can you be honest with me? Let's say you and I are in a relationship. And you kind of come to notice a few changes in me. And you say, Amir, be honest, please. Two things. First, you don't know how I will do with honesty. I'm not talking about you. Can I handle honesty? For me, does honesty set me free? You know the saying, speak the truth and the truth shall set you free? That's actually not true. There is a good amount of doubt and conflict that lives inside you. Should I say the truth or should I just withhold it for now? You will have many, many sleepless nights. Many sleepless nights. You have no idea. And remember, what we do is we prep. It's like getting ready for an interview. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to go to my wife and I'm going to say, I took all that money from our savings account and bought a bike. Now you're going to say she's going to scream, she's going to shout, she's going to do this, So you prep for all the possibilities. And then you say it. And as you're saying it, you realize you're getting red, you're getting anxious, you're beginning to sweat, you begin to mumble over your words. And then you say, yeah, it's really nothing. I want to talk to you about my work, but I can figure things out. And your wife, of course, mothers are busy with 4 kids and a husband who's the 5th kid, says, okay, you know what? Oh yeah, we'll talk about it later. And then you walk away, say, damn, the truth doesn't really set you free. It puts this burden on you, like you're carrying this world on your shoulder. I don't want it, thank God. So people lie for one simple reason. First, they don't really know how they're going to react to it themselves. Second, it's going to take you a long, long, long time to dig up truth from all the trash that lives on the top. First, you have to see truth for yourself. Figure it out. Where exactly is it? What does it look like? How does it make you feel? What happens when you speak it? Okay. Then you have to be careful because you have no idea if your wife, if your husband, if your parents have the capacity to see your truth. Mom, I got a tattoo. What's going to happen when you tell your mom you got a tattoo? You have the capacity to watch her cry? You have the capacity to watch her, watch you wear what you're wearing, go in public in the Indian community? What do people going to say about her? About the way she's raised you? About the way she is as a mother? About your father? These are very subtle cultural components you have no awareness of. So truth may set you free. So after you speak the truth, what are you going to do with all the responsibilities, the shame, the guilt, the feeling bad, the reflections, seeing your mom cry day and night? What are you going to do with that? You're proud of being truthful? No, it's just that we have no choice but to lie in life. That's the only way you survive. One of the nice things about 21st century is the number of divorces and broken relationships. Religion can no longer hold people together. Culture can no longer hold people together. Children can no longer hold 2 adults together. Nobody cares. All the things that used to glue us together to safeguard certain things, they're no longer in place. So everything falls apart. Now, you may think that shame and guilt are unnecessary components, and I don't disagree with you. But it's freeing for who? Someone like Friedrich Nietzsche, let me give you a different example. Someone like Jesus Christ can come forth and say, I don't care about the letter of the law. Well, that's Jesus. He wants the spirit. He doesn't like to just look at food and say, oh, it smells good. He wants to put the food in his mouth, taste it, smell it, be one with it. That's Jesus. Imagine you say that to a Jew, Orthodox, who just likes to go to the synagogue on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Monday, just read from the Old Testament a couple of pages and walk home. The person who enjoys letter of the law is going to find the spirit of the law very constricting, problematic. It's an assault. It's a harassment of sorts. You're right. Shame is bad, but for who? Shame could be good, but for who? For the majority of people, shame is a good thing. Only for rare people, shame is bad. They should come out and just be who they are. Yeah, Neon, and I can't even see you. You're sitting in a very, very bad spot.
You're talking about safeguards, how you're not glued together anymore, dated or whatever. Wouldn't that create more like you don't want to be stuck in a relationship.
So wait, are you talking about like a father and a mother and a child in the middle? You're talking about who?
Yeah, like a father and a mother.
Okay. There are a couple of things. When you talk about people separating, what you're talking about, this thing called discontent. Let's say you come to me and say, I don't want to be in this class anymore. I'm going to say, okay, Nayan, what makes you unhappy? What is so unpleasant about this class? You're expressing discontent. Okay? Something you need to understand about discontent, not being happy, not being fulfilled. The truth is, there is no place you can go under the sun where you could be fulfilled, where you could be content. Life is always throwing you a curveball. It's always giving you events you have no knowledge of, and you have to wing it. You're always going to be miserable. Now, I don't know, you're 18. Now, you think you understand a few things. Just wait till you're about 30. You finish school, okay? Now, I don't know if you're going to finish school, okay? I don't know what degrees you're going to get in school, but whatever it may be, you're going to get a job. Now, you're going to be really excited when you get your first paycheck, second paycheck. After a while, you hate going to work, and you're willing to quit and remaining without money. Then you're going to get married because somewhere out there, there's a woman or a man you find attractive. You're going to propose. She's going to say yes. There's going to be moments, and he'll tell you. You're going to wake up and say, this was a mistake, complete mistake. So discontent is where you and I are, and we have always been. Always been. I'm not the Buddha. Now, you may think Jesus Christ is a perfect human being, okay? I don't know if he was, but here's what I'll tell you. So you have a 12-year-old kid who's not happy with life. He's not happy with being a Jew. He's not happy with simply being in Nazareth. He's not happy with any of that stuff. He's not happy with the teachings of the synagogue, of the rabbis. At the age of 12, this is 2,000 years ago. People don't leave their parents. You don't turn your back to religion, man. At the age of 12, you don't leave the house. It's not done. What does he do? He is unhappy. He leaves. At the age of 30, let's just say God speaks to him. All right, so you have God. What else do you need? It's not enough for him, is it? He says, I have the kingdom of God within me. All of a sudden, a man who is now rich with God, he finds himself poor. How? I want to share my gift with other people. But did anybody ask you? Were you invited anywhere? What gives you the right to impose yourself onto other people? But that's his poverty. All of a sudden, a man who was unhappy sees God, finds God, tastes God, becomes happy. Then he becomes unhappy. Why? Because he sees others like you and I and says, they're miserable, really. How the hell do you know I'm miserable? I got a wife, I'm happy. I got kids, I'm happy. I go synagogue, I'm happy. What gives you the right to come to my life, into my life, and tell me I'm unhappy? Because Jesus is miserable.